Hey, how's it going?
Hey,
Uh,
can you hear?
oh yeah, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, it's working.
So you were doing a show. What was it?
Yeah, like looking at
Web
apartments.
show?
My
Okay.
lease, yeah, my lease expires on like 14th of July, and so I'll have to. We don't know if we'll stay in the same place or we'll move somewhere.
Is there a rent cap where you guys are at, or do they increase whenever they feel like it?
I think there's no control. Yeah, I was just like reviewing my lease to see if there is rent control, but I don't think there is at this place.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm. What's your rent?
2,500 right now, which is pretty low for the area. We feel like any place we see is like 3,200 or more for like a one bedroom. And
Holy
yeah, and we really don't want to pay that anymore. So like if if this place stays what it was, we might stay here, but we're not like super happy with it. But if we were forced with like pay 3,200 or like leave the city, we'll probably like investigate like just moving to Toronto, Canada or something. But even then, I'm not sure that we'd get a great deal there. We might just like spend a bit of time there and then move somewhere even more like rural or something if rent doesn't isn't just not sustainable.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Just thinking, do you know what the cost of places go for where you're at? Like, we're talking
A lot of
500,000, 600,000 American or what?
I guess I've seen a lot of like $1 million like one bedroom condos like $1 million. That's what I've
American.
seen for yeah, like the ones I've looked at, I guess. I don't know, maybe there's like 800,000 for like a house that's like kind of far from here. But then it's like a million if you get any good house is like over a million. Or any like I've seen the waterfront like one bedroom condos are like 1 million. I think that the place we're in right now, I think the owner paid 500,000 or above for the place we're in right now, which is like a one bedroom.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it was funny
Yep.
though because we just in the place we were just touring, we kept running into like these like a bunch of old people in the elevators that like clearly had been there for like 20 years, and their rent must be like 800 bucks, and they have rent control, and it's like a 1% increase per year. And so they're like everyone we met in the elevators was like, "This place is great. You should move in." And I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, they pay like $900 max for rent, and we're looking at like 3,200, and like it would be great if we could like afford to to move here.
Yeah. Hmm. Feel bad for the owner who has all the old people with the rent caps. But then I wonder if there's a way to like rent, not rent, rent evict. And that's the risk that you
I
run,
don't
I
know.
guess, when there's rent
Well,
control.
the owner is just like a massive corporation. The the entire like four tower complex is owned by like a parent company that owns like most of the other buildings on the waterfront. And it's like one, it's called like Gray Star, is just this faceless corporate owner that uh like I'm pretty sure they would use a software called like Real Page, which is like under investigation with the FBI for like collusion right now for price, because a bunch of the like all the companies that rent apartments use it, and they all like uniformly raise their prices according to this like software. Uh, and the guy who invented it had already been kicked out of America once for like illegally fixing prices in another industry. So that doesn't look like a totally legal thing going on there. So I don't know if there is like I don't think there's like a like a penny pinched owner. I think it's just like massive private equity firm that's like tied up into some like stock derivative or something.
It's wild. Well, I mean, it's crazy that people are paying crazy prices to live in a city that's filled with pollution and noise and people. It's like I'm trying to get away by going back to Vancouver Island, where I know
Yeah.
people are moving there, but yeah, and I did visit last year, and I found it's starting to feel a little bit crowded. But I mean, that was the summertime, so tourist season. But like the whole idea of me going back west is so that I don't have to be around people and pollution and noise and can be in nature. Oh, it's gonna be good, man, because yeah, I'm releasing from the military. We talked about that.
Yeah.
It's happening in November. So I'm gonna relocate back to Vancouver Island and I'll have some benefits kicking in. So I'll be living a better life, I hope.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, I guess there's like a tourism thing on the island.
Hmm.
If there was, I don't know how public transit is. I guess there's some public transit.
They used to have a train system and then they
Huh.
done away with it when they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
They should
That
actually
would be neat.
resurrect. They need to resurrect
Yeah.
the train system.
Yeah, like taking like a train tour around the island, especially like yeah, I think I visited Vancouver Island once, but I was kind of just like staying around like there's like a Fairmont hotel and then I took like a shuttle bus to like a flower garden, but I didn't I noticed there's like a whole part of the island that like is really kind of not accessible unless you rent a car or something.
Yeah, but I mean, even just a train connecting the areas outside of Malahat, like that highway there, like Duncan, connecting Duncan to Victoria, at the very least, they could do that
Mm.
because the highways they get pretty packed. The Malahat it gets backed up, so population's too big for the
Mm.
infrastructure. They have
Yeah.
stations and they have worn out tracks and train trestles or whatever they're called. But yeah, I don't know why they did away with it.
Yeah, if there's rich people in the area, sometimes rich people don't allow the development of transit because they think poor people will use it and have picnics on their lawn or something.
And we'll do what to their lawns?
Like picnic on it, like eat picnics, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that like in terms of like just enjoyment of life, I feel like human beings go and explore areas. And if we make like areas explorable with like trains and stuff like that, that pretty much is just that's just it. Like in life, like we have a job, we make money, and then we take train trips around and explore places. But if they don't have trains and there's like parking that's crowded and roads, then it's sort of like, well, what are we even like what's the goal, like if the enjoyment part and the parks and the trails are not accessible, then what are we really like working towards? We're sort of like, we're like it's like less and less people can enjoy the good stuff and more people are just kind of trapped in little tiny areas like around cities and stuff.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to figure it out. Spent the last
Yeah.
10 years plus, like my career working for the military, not realizing where all the time was going. Actually, there was times where I was so busy and overwhelmed and stressed and tired and sore that I welcomed death. Like I
Yeah.
wanted to die. I actually wanted to die because
Right.
I
Yeah.
needed the release. I needed to stop suffering.
Yeah, it's
So
hard to see in those times. It's hard. It's like, what's the point? Yeah, exactly. Like, it's a weird. it's weird being pushed across that line where you just feel like there's nothing good in the future.
Well, just even in the present,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
suffering was
Uh-huh.
so much that I remember feeling that way. I remember losing the will to live quite a few times as well. And it's not a way to be. Like I kind of remember how I was when I was living in BC and just turned 25. I was happy, it was strong, doing backpacking trips and starting to build a community. And then they post me to Borden, and 10 years later, I wake up and I'm like, what the fuck happened? It was
Right.
just a nonstop grind. Lost my health, got really sick. I'm spending resources and time and energy to try to like get back some sort of health. But there's a saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And if only I said no to the stress, if I honored myself and what I wanted, I wouldn't have dropped so low. So it's like, why do we work that hard? What's the point? I mean, I had everything I ever wanted, and I didn't grow up rich, so I don't really want many things. I'm also a minimalist.
Uh-huh.
And, like I was able to pay my bills, and I had I had money. I didn't have to worry. But then when COVID hit, or after COVID hit and interest rates went up, and I had no money. And here I'm making 140,000, 145, now 150, and I have like I'm redlining. Like I'm going into debt and I don't even spend because I have variable mortgages. And when I actually did a balance sheet and I started to learn about money, because I was just like, this is ridiculous. I shouldn't be going into debt. I should be able to grow wealth. And I'm not. I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I working every day in a city I hate, doing a job I hate, to pay for
Mhm.
bills for a place that I only have because of the job? I've said this before. And I kind of like started
Yeah.
to wake up financially and learn about money, and then I did a balance sheet and I saw where everything was going. I did my income tax not too long ago, and it was like $25,000 in interest after tax. That's
Right.
an insane amount of money to go towards interest. Just interest.
Yeah.
I paid barely anything for principal because they front end load it. I don't know how they get away with that shit, because not only were my payments going up, the amount that I was paying towards principal was going down. So
Well,
that
what does that actually mean in terms of like if you sell the place or something, does that affect like how much profit you're making off the sale of the house or something? The front loading, like isn't it like when people pay a mortgage, they like if they complete, if they finish their mortgage, they usually end up paying about twice the value of the home, and like the other half is to the bank over the course of like the 30 years or whatever. But in your case, like if you're reselling the home and maybe the price has gone slightly up or it's equal to what you sort of agreed to pay in the beginning, do you end up getting affected by that interest somehow?
I'm not sure if I understand the question, but like, so I
Yeah.
don't understand the front end loading. That shouldn't. I don't understand why that's acceptable or allowed. It should be. I. I don't understand the financing here really. So they spread it out over 30 years, the amortization period, but the term is only 5 years. And yet, like, I don't get it. How, like, do they take that
Yeah.
5 year term, and then whatever the interest is going to be in that 5 years out of that 30-year chunk, then do they like say, okay, in 5 years, we expect to make this much, but we're going to put all the interest payment for this 5 year period in the front? Like, this is what I need to look at, because I don't think it's fair. It's not fair to say, okay, it's a 30-year period, but we're going to take all the interest for the 30 years and tack it on in the first 5 years, because
Yeah.
that's bullshit. Because then what? Like your 5 year term is up, and then you renew for
Oh,
a
right.
30
Yeah.
year term, or amortization period, And then what are they going to do? The exact same thing again and front end load you for 5 years, like, and make you pay all the interest for that 30-year period up front?
Oh
Like
yeah.
that.
So does
So
that
I don't.
basically, I wonder if that means like that, like cause you, like basically the mortgage is like a loan and you're repaying the loan. But if you're paying like, if they're front loading the interest and most of your money's going to the interest, I guess that means that you're not paying the principal of the loan down.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
then,
And
yeah, that would be bad. Yeah, if they're like, oh, you owe us like 800,000, and then you pay them like a bunch of money, and then they're like, well, you still owe 800,000 because we took all the money for interest payments or something. Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah, because
admit
then yeah,
that
that's
like
true.
the
Yeah,
math doesn't make sense to me. Like I've seen the formula. I've seen the I've seen it drawn out over, a 30-year period, but I don't understand how this is acceptable, how it's actually allowed, and how we
yeah,
basically pay for places two times over, depending if it's 10%. I mean, if it was 10%, it's fucking crazy. But what the hell? So, and here's the other thing too is, you're paying your place down. Sure, market value will go up, but market goes up, like, everything goes up everywhere. So you're just sort of riding the rising tide. So whatever equity you're getting, that's great. I mean, that's all money you can put to work. But every time you put your money to work, you're risking it. And then you putting it to work, really, I'm learning this as well. It only makes sense if the interest rates are low enough. Because like if you're, let's say if the interest rate is on your mortgage 8%, which is crazy. You take your money, or let's say you get a HELOC. So you want to take the money out of your place as a HELOC and put it to work. And they charge you whatever their rate is plus the 1% they want to make. You have to make that at least for you to put your money to work and for it to make sense. But you doing that puts the money at risk as soon as you put it into work.
yeah,
And okay, so let's say the total is 9% once everything is said and done through your HELOC. I mean, that's pretty big. You gonna get that in the stock market? I mean, I don't trust the stock market. You gonna get it from real estate? Maybe. But yeah, I mean, the more secure you go with your investment, the lower the rate of return, I find. So you might get some pretty good returns from the stock market or the real estate over the long term. But I mean, the real estate is longer holds, more upfront costs. But like, if you put your money into an interest account, like I can get 5.5%, making it just sit in an account. I
yeah,
maybe I don't know if a GIC pays more, but these other things, these
mm,
other vehicles are more secure, and but they don't pay as much. So putting your money to work really to get a return, you have to put it at risk when the interest rates are higher. So it's like timing it. So like my buddy got a fixed mortgage at like 3% for the next 5 years. Lucky motherfucker. So that entire time, I mean, if having a HELOC, it wouldn't really matter because the HELOC's gonna be variable. So you pull it out, you're gonna pay whatever prime is plus whatever. So, but if he was able to like finance his place and pull out all the equity when the interest rate was lower at a fixed amount,
yeah,
then that's the time to do it. That's when you want to put your money to work. But the problem is when you interest rates are lower, then everybody has more buying power and it dries up price. So like how the fuck do you time it? I'm trying to
yeah.
figure out how to time it. Really, it just seems like you have to sit on cash
Oh
or
yeah, I think I've heard like you just can't. There's no way to time it. A lot of
well,
people have said, yeah, like it's
I'm
really
not talking about
impossible.
timing. I'm not talking about timing the
Yeah,
stock market. I'm talking about timing like when to actually pull out your money to make it work. So like I have lines of credit ready to go and I can put it to work, but with the interest rates the way they are, like I'm not
mm,
expecting them. Okay, I guess this is how to do it. Is I just saw a decrease in the interest rate. It means the Bank of Canada is gonna start adjusting, and that's assuming everything is gonna continue to go well, which who knows with the next war or whatever else. So this might be the time to start tapping into the equity of my homes in a different market. So like the American interest rate hasn't dropped. Their situation is different than us. So I'm looking at US real estate right now. And I might just be timing this well where I'm using cash and HELOC here,
What is HELOC?
home equity line of credit. So they assess your home, they determine what the value is, how much equity you can access. It used to be, I think it was 80%, now it's only 60%. I think my guy was using old rules, so I was able to get a lot more than I should have, even though he should have been using the lower amount. Like fuck, he
So so basically like they're giving you a loan secured by they take your home, if you don't pay back the loan, that kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah, and then you're trying to like invest that money to make more money than the price of the that you're paying for the
Mhm.
loan. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I would never take that money and put it into like crypto or an
Oh yeah.
individual stock or something like that. Like I wouldn't put that money into the stock market, not the equity of my home. Not unless I knew exactly what I was doing with day trading, and I don't. I don't have a fucking clue. So real estate, I'm gonna pull out of real estate to put it into real estate, but in a better market. So that's the plan. Actually, I'm gonna start something tomorrow. I've already had some chats, and so you can try to build your portfolio using a company and own the houses you're by yourself, and then have the company manage everything like an asset manager. Or you can go in with some people who have experience and do deals. So I'm gonna hop in. I'm gonna try both. I have a company working for me to help me build my own portfolio, where I own all the properties on my own. And at the same time, I've met people who've been in the US real estate world for quite a while, and they can cherry pick wholesale deals. The wholesalers go to them because they close and they have a history of closing quick. And I could see why. They have their shit wired tight. I just talked with them and I knew exactly what they're talking about. I know just enough of the lingo and how it works to know that they know what they're talking about. And they
Mm.
taught me a few things, and they actually want me to do well. Because the real estate in the US, I mean, there's so many opportunities if you can close. A lot of people can't close. And so because there's so many opportunities, like he's flooded with them where he's just like, "Hey, I could use my own money, but it's gonna take a while, so I have so many options that I'm going to bring other people in on these deals." And so he does, and he just shapes the deals, gives a very, very lucrative percentages. He just offered me 50% on a deal where I only have to pay 50,000 American. And then here's the other kicker is not only do I get half of the rent, so the rent is $3,000 a month. There's some overarching maintenance fees or fees that go to um, keeping that place going. No, I forget exactly what it is, but a chunk of it goes to paying off the financing that he got. So he put the down payment down of 33,000, and then the financing covers the rest, and then the 50,000 he wants from me is for like renovations and improvements and whatever else. And he offered me 50% of the place. Usually the deals are like 10 to 30%, but this time he wants the deal to go quick. And so the way it works is I'll get the rent, which is the remaining amount is $1,000. So divided by 2. So he gets half, I get half, even though he has the financing and he assumed the risk and he created the deal. He
Oh yeah.
should get more, and normally he would get more, and that's what would be expected. But here's the thing is, in 3 years, my initial investment will be handed back to me 100%. So $50,000 American will be given back to me. But here's the kicker. I will still still own 50% of that property. That property will still be owned. We'll just be financing it and letting other people's money pay for it. And not only do I get that $50,000 back, still have the cash flow from that place. That 50,000 is not gonna. They're not gonna take the payments of the last 3 years. This is where it's different than other deals. He won't. He will give me the full 50 back, and in addition to the 3 years of the money that I made, the $15,000 that I've made on rent. So I get to service my debt, have a bit
Mm.
of leftover, get all the money of my initial investment back, which I mean, at $50,000, I can get at least 5.5% of it just sat. So this is more than that. So I'm getting
Yeah, it
much
looks
more
about
than
like 12. Yeah, if you're making like $500 a month, then it's about 12% a year for an investment of 50,000. So that's decent, I guess. Like, yeah, if you get 12% interest a year, essentially for a
but
payment of
here's
50,000.
so here's the best part is after 3 years, once my investment's back, it's 100% return. No, it's infinite return on my investment because I have no money in no skin in the game anymore. So
Yeah.
once I get that $50,000 back and I still own 50% of the property, that's just a cash cow. It will continue to make me money. And he
What do you
actually gave me a
think
really
is the like couldn't if they're giving a deal like if they're just giving 12% interest like that, couldn't they do better uh like if there's like a personal relationship involved where like they can trust you somehow, then that's like I guess that's worth like paying extra. But that's like they're offering like a pretty good deal. So if they just like they could have all the capital they want if they're giving like a 12% interest, and that wouldn't like they could just expand. It's like how fast can they expand essentially
well, they're at 30
if it's
doors
interesting.
right now and they want 50 by the end of the quarter. So they're really going through things quickly. So
Yeah,
I
they're not concerned because again it seems like they're growing fast and making money, so they're passing on some of the profit or something. Yeah.
yeah, well, also it's interesting because you'd think it'd be too good to be true, but it makes a lot of sense once you get to a certain point. Eventually, you kind of just want to give back. And the neat thing too is not only am I going to learn from them, we're with this current place that we're getting, the rent's high. It says up front that the rent is high. It is $3,000 for a place that's costing like 169,000. It's a lot, but what this is, it's sort of it's a house for people who are in transition, trying to or not transition, but like trying to get help. Like so they're attending AA courses and they're trying to
Right.
get back on their feet. But the thing is that these people probably have terrible credit, cannot get rent on their own. I just experienced this with the house I was trying to close on in Georgia, where the lady had terrible credit and she was selling her place because she had too many debts and she wanted to rebuild her credit. And she went to a wholesaler, but the condition was is that she would have rent for $2,500 for 2 years. So I can't increase it, even though there's no rent cap. And she was going to pay 6 months in advance, and also there'd be no renovations required because she's living there. But the thing is, her credit came back so bad that it was like, "Are you sure you're gonna be able to pay the fucking rent?" Because and she also changed the deal. She took the 6 months prepayment off. And so, like, we were like, "Okay, well, at least first and last," but then we need to understand who our tenant is now. You're asking us to assume more risk. We didn't realize that her credit was so bad. And the explanation was given to me by the guys that are looking into this is that she needs the guaranteed rent or a place to live because if she goes on the market, no one's going to look at her. So I've learned from this recent experience that didn't really pan out well that, yeah, these transition homes or these halfway homes, that's the word for it, make a lot of sense because the one we're looking at has 6 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, And if you were to charge $500 per room, American, I mean, that's a reasonable amount. And these people, if they're on welfare or whatever else, they can pay that. So I've seen it where people can cohabitate with each other. Seen it before. I know that this can work because my ex had midterm renting where she, handpicked people to go into rooms and they shared the kitchen and common space. And I mean, the fucking money that
Yeah.
she charged was crazy. It was like $1,100, $1,200 a fucking room in Mississauga. It's crazy, crazy money. And the funny thing is too, is like some of them would take on additional responsibilities for a little discount, like someone would mow the lawn or take out the garbage, so she didn't have to do any fucking nothing. Sometimes she'd get a handyman that would do all the maintenance for a
Yeah.
little bit off the rent. Basically just runs itself. But that's just it. Like some people don't want a whole place to rent. They're living by themselves. They're in a particular area for work. And that these are just like working professionals. So yeah, the same thing can, you get people in a halfway home. These kind of homes make sense. And that's why the rent can be so high. So I uh I think it's great. And also we're kind of helping out these organizations that are trying to provide housing for people who want to make something for themselves. And the other thing, like it's not just recovering alcoholics. It could be people who had a bad patch and who are fighting for custody for their kids and need to have a stable home and eventually build themselves back up for other reasons. It's fucking glorious. And then we talked about maybe even opening up homes for veterans. So some veterans that get like fucked over by VA or whatever that are having a hard time because of their injuries. Because VA is legendary for not taking care of the soldiers in the States. Like, so that we can also look at a company, or maybe the same company will have homes geared towards veterans, which would be more my domain. So I can take what they have built and kind of copy it and then go off on my own branch, but then also kind of like leverage their knowledge for a small percentage. Like they could be like a 10% deal for any place that I get just for me to leverage their expertise and their templates and their financing systems and whatever else. I'll give them a 10% cut, but do my own deals. So there's so much potential out there, man. It's just, I guess it comes back to it takes money to make money. I heard some people say, "Oh no, it doesn't. You can make money." I'm like, "Nah, man. You gotta be able to borrow money." And well, really, the key is to leverage other people's money. And so, like, what I'm gonna do is I have a home equity line of credit on my BC place. What I'm gonna do is because they want such a quick turnaround time, because we got to close on this deal by the 14th of June, I'm gonna use my HELOC, which is I think 7.5%. I got a bit of a discount on it, but I do have cash,
Mm.
so it would make more sense instead of my cash sitting for 5.5% to just pay off whatever I use for my line of credit. But the line of credit,
Right.
which is in one bank account, and my cash sitting in a different account, it takes like 5 days to move things over, for 3 to 5 days. So
Yeah.
what's cool is that this banking institution, my lines of credit, allows me to transfer money internationally immediately. Well, it takes time to move money internationally, but then once I do that and pull from my HELOC, I can just take that amount from my cash account that I had the interest and just transfer that
Yeah.
exact amount that I sent over. So I have flexibility.
Yeah.
I could just leverage the HELOC, which would actually be a good idea, but I don't need to because I got cash. So when I go to buy a house outright for myself to completely and fully manage, like a detached home, um, I'm going to probably need to tap into all of my cash and the remaining of my HELOC and my line of credit to pay for this thing outright. And then I wait until I can get some good financing because I have to wait for good financing. I don't want to take a bad financing deal. And then I'll be able to pull my own money back. And so it's just the
Right.
HELOC and the line of credit that sits. But then again, fuck, there's no point in me having cash at 5.5% when I'm paying 7 to 8% interest. So this is where
Right.
this is where it's interesting. So if the interest rate for my lines of credit drop below 5.5%, then it makes sense to just fully leverage my lines of credit. But until then, it doesn't make sense because I'm paying 2 point something percent more to use those places or to use those tools that I have. The fucking interest rate's too high right now for folks to buy anything or to leverage your line of credit. And that means that there's not a lot of people, well, there's still people out there buying, but it's not as much of a feeding frenzy because you see how people can't leverage their lines of credit without it hurting. Like the amount of interest that they're gonna be paying is really high, right? You see that?
In lines of credit?
Yeah, so the amounts that they're gonna be paying if they start like leveraging all their lines of credit and stuff in order to like make the money
Yeah.
work, because the interest rates are higher, their return's gonna be much, much less than if the interest rates were lower. So I mean, you can leverage it all, get their foot in the door in anticipation that the rates will drop. So this would be the time. If I were to time things, this would be the time to start getting my foot in the door in anticipation of the rates dropping. Because once the
Oh
rates
yeah.
drop, it's too late. Then everybody is going because it's safe. Now they
Hmm.
have all this money that they can now leverage. And because there's more demand, it's going to drive up prices, which is good for me if I'm already in the market. Because they drive up the prices, which means then I can refinance and pull out all that equity that they just created because they just created a demand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I was
Yeah. So
crunching some numbers that like that would be imagine like if somehow I was looking at like if somehow somebody if you can get access to like a $25 million like line of credit or something, if you just can make like 2% interest for 1 year on that, then you're making like half a million. And that's kind of interesting. Like if the bank would agree to give you a loan of 25 million somehow, if you could get them to agree to that and only charge you like 3% interest, and you could just put it in, like easiest thing would be like put it in a bank account making 5% and just make 2% interest for 1 year, and you'd walk away with a lot of money. I'm sure someone has made a deal. Some person in a suit has like convinced a bank to do that by leveraging something.
well, right off the bat, like for them to borrow that 25 million, let's say if they took it from the Bank of Canada, they got their prime, right? So whatever prime is, like they want to make money off of that money too. So
Yeah.
let's say prime is 5%. You're not going to get you're not going to get it for anything.
Anything less, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and they want their cut. I mean, that's some big money to assume, right? So I'd say they want their 2% cut. Yeah, 7% right there. So prime drops to be like 1% again. Maybe that was the time to look into those massive deals, but they look at your ability to service that debt and pay the interest. So if you tell them you're going to put into a high interest account, I don't know if they would bite. Maybe. But I think they would look
Yeah.
at your ability to service the debt based off of your income and service debt ratio. So,
Another thing I heard that like this is a or you can go ahead if you were finishing your thought there.
I mean, it's a neat idea. I mean,
Mhm.
I wish it would work. I really do.
Yeah, because the other way of a similar thing is like when a business needs to like make payroll, essentially that means they need to like at least for like 1 day in advance of payroll, they need to put a bunch of cash into a bank account, which then gets like divided and sent to all the employees. So that means they have at least for a day, they have like a bunch of cash in one account. And there's these companies that will like acquire the rights to like trade that cash account that tomorrow is going to be paid out as payroll. They'll like trade it on the market for like 1 day, like overnight, and then they sort of they guarantee that it'll still be there in the morning, but then they try to make money on that pocket of cash like for just the 1 day of trading, and then it gets sent to the employees for like payroll, and that's kind of a weird, it's like the way the system is cash, like massive amounts of cash will appear in an account for like a 24 hours. And then, someone is like, maybe I can make some profit off of that cash for like one day before it gets paid out or something. And it's kind of weird. There's always these pockets where people can like just assume risk and make some money or something.
If they know what they're doing, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, even if it's like if it's a huge like account and they're making like a fraction of a percent, it would still be like pretty decent.
That's just it, right? I see money like mass. The more money you have, the more it attracts other mass. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm just thinking if I go for that $70 million jackpot. I mean, I was just thinking if I had that money just sitting would make a fucking making
Yeah.
5% interest per year. Be fucking laughing. Be just laughing.
Yeah.
It's such a huge cash cow that it's a stupid amount of money. I don't understand why people need anywhere near that amount. What's the point? They
Yeah.
want to build massive corporations that create complexity, and the more complexity, the more chaos, the more stress. Why not just live your life? I guess just some people want to leave a legacy. They want to have their name remembered. I don't know.
Yeah, at some point, because some people are so old too, like they're still accumulating millions, and they're so old that it will never make a difference to them. They have some idea that like they'll pass it on, and like the next generation will have a better life, but passing on too much can kind of ruin someone's life if they don't have a chance to like properly develop at like with reasonable finances. So it's almost like, above a certain limit, you're sort of harming the next like generation, whoever you pass it on to.
And
Or
that's a
if you
great
decide not to, they like resent you, if you decide not to pass it down or something like that.
and it's a good topic for discussion, I think, like, to have a debate on that. See, I think if with that money comes education on how to manage that money and how the system works, and like so they can have an appreciation for the freedom that it provides. Like it lets you basically tap into all the fruits of everybody else's labor. So you have to have people working the economy to have an economy. People have to work, they have to
Mhm.
do things. So if no one worked, and you wouldn't be able to go anywhere for services or products, like nothing would happen. So people have to, the economy has to be there, and people have to be driven to make money. There has to be people that do the 9 to 5. So they have to be aware of like the system so they can have gratitude for the system. And while they don't have to be enslaved to it, just at least appreciate, have gratitude for where they are. And that has to be taught and shown to them. But, there is, so part of a healthy lifestyle, there's like, I mean, at least three categories that can be argued based off like the Blue Zone research and, other things. It's like, uh, healthy eating, mostly plant-based. This is from Blue Zone research. Moderate physical activity every day. And I mean, talk forever about that, and how it's linked to evolution. But then there's the third category, which is like your sense of community, self, value. I mean, we have like this programming in us that requires us to fit in with others, and we all want to belong. I mean, those fucking cologne commercials, perfume commercials, they show lifestyle, they show acceptance. I mean, that's not just those commercials, but many other commercials. Like they tap into that desire in us to want to be accepted, and to belong. And this program in us drives us to seek connection. I mean, it's a part of the reason why we survive by forming families. You know this, I'm sure. Um, but
Yeah.
having a purpose and feeling like we contribute, like we need to have that, otherwise we get sick. We feel isolated and alone, and it creates anxiety and stress in us.
Yeah.
So with that money being passed down, it's not basically saying, here you go, now do nothing with your life. Because I mean, I'm just gonna put my neck out there as a theory and say, I mean, maybe that's why so many of those fuckers turn to drugs, because they're trying to, escape how bored they are. or maybe they're not adding any value and they don't feel like they belong, and maybe they have like severe mental illness because they don't understand that component of a healthy lifestyle, and so they do drugs and they OD, and you know, also with money can give power, and they can feel more powerful than others, and power corrupts the mind. It actually changes the way the mind is. It makes you people with power. When you scan their brains, the brains resemble people with who are sociopaths, and so you become kind of desensitized to others, and yet that's like the worst. I thought that maybe for me, because I don't trust people and the way I pull away and how much I've been hurt in my life and the fear of abandonment, that maybe that by having power I could like desensitize myself from my programming, but I don't think that would work. I think I might become numb to it, but I still think, or number to it, but I still think I will have a desire to want to connect, and not being able to connect really and truly with others. Maybe because I think that they want my money or whatever else. I mean, I can see why people turn to drugs. So they'd have to, with that money would have to come with an education, or they have to be taught about how to use it, how to not manipulate, but how to put it to work. The the consequences of just doing nothing and sitting on their ass, and really be mentored by whoever is passing that money down.
Mm.
So without that in place, yeah, I think it would be a curse. To not have any
Yeah.
gratitude, I think it would be a curse, and I think it'd be very quick. It'd be very easy to squander that money.
Yeah, and it would be hard to do the mentoring, like passing down a certain like a pretty high fortune. You'd really have to like it would depend on the kid and like the how they are and how much time you spent like in their childhood and stuff like it would be hard to really prepare someone to be like a well-rounded individual if especially if like you've lived a life of like luxury with like servants and stuff like that and like it would be hard to be in touch with reality yourself, let alone like pass down the like some kind of groundedness to like another person.
Yeah, all that shit makes you a
Yeah.
target. I was thinking, like, if I had 10,000 Bitcoin, I would never talk about Bitcoin. You know?
Yeah.
I would never talk about this shit. Like, I would live like I do now. I would probably have a newer Forerunner. But actually, I would probably just clean mine up because she's such a good girl, still lasting
Yeah.
after all these years. Um, but like I'd be an incognito rich person. Like the wealth that I do have, I mean, I don't openly talk about it too much. I talk about with other veterans. I talk about the nest egg that they can get. I talk about making money
Mm.
work, but I don't go out advertising that I have a shit ton of money. I don't do that.
Yeah.
So, and no one should, because it makes you a target. And yeah, so like having servants and that kind of lifestyle can make you a target. Like you could just have multiple homes that are paid for and travel the world. I mean, you don't even need to have your own fucking private jet. You could just, I guess you could. I mean, who wants to hang out at an airport? You get sick being around other people and
Mm.
stuff. But you can have
I
your
saw
own,
yeah, there's some
if
pretty
your
cool
own,
like little apartments on planes.
yeah. But
I
like,
saw Mr. Beast in one. There's like a YouTube
yeah.
video. Some YouTuber was like giving a plane tour and there's these little apartments. That's kind of a sidetrack though. It's
Mr. Beast works really hard with his crew to produce his content. I mean, he's obsessed with it. He
mm,
has been since he started. So, um, yeah, he's worked hard. I mean, everything he has, he's earned.
yeah, in terms of this, yeah, you're saying like yeah, multiple has like, touring the world. The I want to mention like I listened to this podcast today about a journalist that was following, like for a while, the FBI themselves or whatever, the CIA or something in America, they were like selling like fully encrypted phones to the crime world for the purposes of like spying on, like all these criminals would like buy these like fully encrypted phones and just talk like plain language about the crimes they were doing, and then the FBI would have like a tap on all of that, and they would be able to like track down these huge like syndicates. And so a journalist was like talking about that, and they were saying that like some of the crimes were like insane that were being like discussed like on this encrypted network, and there was like drug dealers that would not be interested in any order of drugs that was like less than like 2 tons of like drugs. Like these were like people that would not sell. They only sold like bulk order drugs like over the amount of like 2 tons. But then they said that at one point they were considering like also spying on like the encrypted phones that were like in Switzerland. But then they decided that like the people that are doing crimes and also like in Switzerland are like the white collar sort of like, if you go after those people, it makes like too much heat and too much noise. And so ultimately, like, because at one point they did start spying on Switzerland, and they just decided like we can't, there's crimes being committed here, but the people it's connected to is like too hot, and so they had to just settle for like going after the drug dealers. Uh, but that gave me this sense of like there is like this rich elite world that like does own, the exact same sort of encrypted phones as like criminals do. But like, and maybe the FBI even kind of knows like they're up to no good, but there's no way to like bring them to justice in a way that doesn't do a lot of collateral damage like politically and to everyone connected. So I thought that was like a fascinating, just feels like there is like these, there's like people that don't really talk about it that are super wealthy, and who knows like where their wealth comes from and what they're up to, but it's the sense that like not everything is totally legit in that front.
I never used to pay attention to any of this stuff before. Like,
Yeah.
really, my head was in the sand. I was happy being a little desk jockey and or whatever my roles were. I was
Yeah, similar.
occupied.
The sort of like the illusion gets broken at some point. Like you work your way up and you realize there kind of is like a ceiling that like it's hard to like, there's like we can sort of see the path to like greater wealth, but at some point you are stepping on other people when you want to cross a certain threshold. And I feel like we've sort of made the conclusion like it's the amount of wealth we generate is we're happy with a lower number than needed just to remain like a peaceful life, and a peaceful like quiet life, and not, we don't want to like go to infinite wealth given what you have to do to your life to like get there kind of.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing is some people work like dogs in order to get that kind of wealth, and they shorten their lifespan with stress. So, like, moving forward now, the things that I take on, like, I need to keep stress at like the lowest amount possible. So it's and like I'm not willing to trade in all my time for money, and that's another thing too. It's I want to have passive cash flow enough to maintain my lifestyle, but my lifestyle, like I have two variable mortgages, and once everything's said and done, I mean I barely have any money to myself, and I'm just going into the red. So I don't need the amount of money that I make. If I were to eliminate one of my two properties, I eliminate half my liabilities. I don't need that salary to pay for that. But anyway, it's been done. I mean, I'm in real estate. I'm in the stock market. I'm in like I seem to be spread across the board, which is I'm diversified, so I'm actually very fortunate that way. Uh, but when I really look at like what my personal expenses are, fucking laughable. I really don't need much at all. It's the mortgage and insurance and stuff that cost everything. And I could eliminate most of my insurance if I just stopped driving, right? Instead of having a motorcycle, just rock a
Yeah.
scooter.
Yeah, that seems
Seriously.
like a good deal. Yeah, like cutting stuff out like that is a pretty good deal.
And the
Cutting out
mortgage,
insurance.
here's a little hack for you. So the U.S. before the housing crisis, I'm reading this book called Last Chance Millionaire, and I was about to throw it in the recycle bin because old antiquated knowledge, financial knowledge, is a liability. Just like, oh, go with variable. Variable is the way to go all the time. No, it's not. No, it's not. I should have got when interest rates were rock bottom, I should have went fixed for like 10 fucking years. So I was listening to old antiquated knowledge and I paid for it. And I paid for it hard. So this book is it was written before, I think it was 2004, 2006, before the American housing crisis. And the author is talking about all these ways to make money. And he's like, one of the biggest things is that you can write off your mortgage interest. I'm like, what? And I'm like reading more into this, and I'm like, oh, that's definitely not Canada. Like, this Americans can do this. And like, well, I can do it because of my rental property. And I'm like, oh, that's right. And I actually double tabbed this page because he said one thing, which was the government recognizes that when you own something, you're going to take better care of it. I'm like, yeah, 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 yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That's true. When we own stuff, the more we own, the more we're going to take care of it. We want that because the government wants us to take care of our shit. Sure, yeah. So it wants to encourage home ownership. And that's why they allow us to write off the interest on the mortgages. And then it clicked. I'm like, oh. And then the housing crisis happened. And then the government decided to fuck the middle class by pulling that away.
Oh wow,
And I remember I
that's crazy.
remember remember reading that before. I don't know if it was an update from Robert Kawasaki, one of his books, but yeah, so no,
Yeah,
that's one of the big tax breaks were taken away, which just fucks the middle class at the end of the day. So
yeah,
yeah, I think Robert talks about it in his cash flow quadrant book, where he talks about being employed, self-employed, business owner, or investor. And really the way to do it is like, so with me renting my BC place out, my interest that I pay and all my other expenses are 100% written off my income. And my income is rent capped, so I'm always in the red by like 12K a year with my place. So I'm paying into the
right.
place 12K. Yeah, it's crazy. So I have to move there to kick out my tenants because they're fucking laughing with how cheap they're living. And also, like, I need to reduce liabilities, and there's this cash for keys bullshit, which is extortion allowed in Canada. And I need to not fall victim to that because, I mean, if they try to pull that shit, I'm going to go right to the media. If not, I mean, I'm probably going to want to personally murder my tenants for trying to extort me. Like, that's how angry this shit makes me.
Yeah, it's a dangerous business for that reason. Like you lose control of like it puts you in a situation where you're at odds with somebody who like has some leverage on you, and it's a it's like a tough position to be in.
Only
And like
that
there's
way.
not, yeah,
It's only that way because of policy, and that's Ontario
yeah.
and BC. I can't speak for the rest of Canada, but it's the rules. And
Yeah, it's just that if the rules were the very favorable to like the owner, it may flip the other way, and then like nobody could really rent reliably. So it's like it's both. It's just like humans on both sides. I feel like someone like in that situation where it's like people buying and selling, like living, there's no way to balance it so that both parties, like walk away happy. And that's weird.
well,
It seems like pitting people against each other or something.
there's a belief that you should be paid for assuming risk. I believe in that. I read that and I believe in it, and I echo it all the time. If there's additional risk to be assumed, I want to be paid for it. So with the
Mm.
policy the way it is, like if I were to continue to rent in Canada, which I won't do, like if I were to grow a portfolio here, I would charge crazy high rent. I mean, that's what happens because otherwise you could be stuck with tenants for 10, 20 years and never be able to increase the rent.
Right.
So it's better to have a few months with no tenant where you're searching for someone than it is to get someone under with like a cheaper rent. You don't want to just have anybody come in paying like under market value. You want someone to be paying market value or over. And so I can see why landlords, owners increase the rent to be high. And if everybody does that because they're assuming more risk because of policy, then it dries up the prices everywhere. Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, also, there's not just that. There's also just the fact like mortgages and the fucking cost of houses have gone up for other reasons, which I'm not going to get into, but I'm aware of why. You know, scarcity being one of them, but also, again, policy being another one. And so it's like the same thing with Airbnb. My place was $150 a night. Then I had an altercation with Airbnb where they treated me very poorly, and they had somebody who, with mixed ratings, try to book my place, and their credit card wasn't approved. And I'm like, well, why the fuck are they even allowed to message me with their credit card not even checked? And then they're like, well, we'll give them 24 hours to sort out the credit card. I'm like, yeah, but you blocked out the 2 weeks while he
Yeah.
sorts out his credit card, which means I could be missing out on someone who wants to book for that 2 weeks. And that's exactly what happened. Uh, that guy fell through. And actually, Airbnb wasn't willing to, after 24 hours, close it down. I actually requested the guest himself. I'm like, hey, buddy, your credit card isn't going through. Do you mind canceling? He's like, yeah, sure, no problem. But Airbnb wouldn't lift the fucking finger to cancel his request. Not a finger. I had to go to the guest myself and be like, hey, buddy, help me out here. You don't want this place. You don't got a credit card. And I definitely missed that 2 weeks being filled. That 2 weeks was empty. So I increased the price from that point forward to $200 a night. And guess what happened? Overwhelming interest. It was
That's weird.
completely, yeah, I was like, so, and this is where the whole lesson of people associate cost with value comes into play. My
Yeah.
place was undervalued, and I made my place less in order to match the market around me. But I offer a grand piano, and my space is beautifully organized. I offer breakfast and other amenities, and I should charge more. So $200 got crazy interest, like more interest than I ever had before. And then now I don't really want to open my place up unless it's really lucrative. So I'm just like, fuck, I put it at 250. Still getting interest. So it's annoying. So my place is more expensive than any place in this area, but I'm also close to an airport. That helps.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I increased the price is what I'm getting at because I now realize I'm assuming more risk because Airbnb will not support me as the owner. And I've seen this
Right.
happen too with my ex when she was trying to do claims and stuff. So someone can come into your
Right.
home and says it smells bad and then demand a full refund after staying in your place for 3 days. So they're in your place for 3 days. I think it was 2 days in this real life scenario. And apparently there was a smell, and they complained to Airbnb, and Airbnb basically automatically gave them back all of their money after they stayed for 2 days.
Wow.
Like, seriously, that's what happened, and they trashed the place. So
Yeah, it actually makes sense. Like Airbnb must value the renters a lot more than the owners. Like given that like the renters are the ones like paying kind of Airbnb, and the rent, like if they make a renter happy, that person will like rent again with Airbnb. So I feel like they would be like totally biased towards
mhm,
the people. Yeah, that's
that's
kind of interesting. I
exactly
never
it.
thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so 2 days were lost of income, and then my ex was forced to pay for the cleaning fee. And then also had to go through the claims process, which is also super aggravating I mean, I was listening to it in speakerphone. I'm sorry, man. Record the policy. It's this, policy that, and it's like, yeah, okay. Let's put someone on the phone who's fucking useless. And we actually did get someone who wasn't fully useless in the end, and they reimbursed the cleaning fee because they realized, yeah, okay. But the fact that they canceled, I mean, how do you prove a place stinks? How do you disprove that? There's nothing to prove smell or no, like unless you show up. And we actually like showed up to the place. We're like, we don't smell anything. We're like, yeah. So they're making it up. Anyway, but that's the kind of
Yeah.
tactics that really, really cheap fucking guests will use, and that's a risk that you assume because you really don't know who you're going to get,
Yeah.
and you can't actually discriminate because you're not allowed to see what they look like until you accept the booking.
Right.
Anyway, but Airbnb or renting your place out for short-term rental, if you do so and you have your calendar open all year round, you have the ability to write off your fucking mortgage interest because your home
Right.
is open for short-term rental. It's a business. So you can write off your expenses. So this is where, like, as someone who's trying to make money, like as a business owner, that you can take advantage of sort not the tax loopholes, but the tax benefits. Like, if this was just your primary residence and you just lived in here and didn't use it for business at all, then you can't write any of this shit off. So like if you do anything from home, like as your own personal business, and you have an office space, anything less than 10%, don't waste your time. So at least 10%. So it's like square footage of your full place. So you pick a place, the biggest space in your home, and you make it your office. So,
Yeah.
and you calculate the percentage, and that percentage of all of your expenses, except obviously principal on your mortgage, you can write off your taxes. But then there's this condition is that whatever business you are doing, you have to like show it, that it's trying to make money. Even if you're in the red, like you reasonably have to try to make some money. So I made 9K last year on Airbnb doing it for shits and giggles. I wrote off $18,000 in expenses because of and that was for a 6 month period. And
Yeah.
that was the interest and 50% of everything it costs to run my place. So it helped offset things. So I'm a little less angry with the fact I paid 25K in interest.
Yeah. And
So these are all
writing off is just like you don't have to pay tax on that amount of your income. And that's like the
yeah. So you put in your T4s
yeah.
or whatever it is in the States and any other sources of income from like
Yeah.
from
And then
interest
the
or
so you're kind of
non-registered.
saving like whatever amount you write off, you're kind of like making about 30% of that amount is kind of like the money that you end up seeing
I
because
guess
you
I don't
would
know the
have
exact percentage.
yeah.
Yeah, but like
Yeah, whatever
you,
taxes, yeah.
you're just bringing down your income as much as possible, right? And so you
Yeah.
really are paying attention to the numbers. You could maximize your return by bringing it down as much as you can, and then you know putting additional amount into the 410K, whatever it's called, 401K.
Oh
Which
yeah.
honestly, man, I think it's a bad deal. The retirement fund thing, the like CPP for Canada, the like RRSP, whatever. I think it's all fucking garbage.
Mm.
The tax, it's just deferring tax. Like you might as well pay it up front now and invest it, and then anything you take home is yours. In fact, this tax deferral shit, I don't like it. I honestly don't like it. The only reason why I have an RSP is because when the government like my severance pay, I mean I can get a big chunk of change and like toss it into the full amount into my RSP, and it won't impact my income at all. But if I were to accept the severance pay without putting my RSP, they will tax it up front, and then anything I make left over will be shown as income. And then I'll be taxed on that income additionally.
Yeah.
Fucking crazy. Like they'll double tax me on my severance pay if I don't put in my RSP. And so like the same thing like
Yeah.
when I had my move benefits, I had like 10,000 excess. Well, that went in my RSP because otherwise they'll tax half of it and then that 5K I would have gotten would have been shown as income. And that doesn't make sense to me. So that's why I have anything in my RSP is sort of like just to not get double fucked. I don't like that.
Right.
I don't like being double tapped like that. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Well, that's
but the
cool. That's
tax,
me. It sounds like you're learning like a lot of other stuff. Like you're getting knowledge from books or like firsthand experience. That's pretty good. No, I feel like that's sort of like the upper class like knowledge, like how to use money to make money, or like this is stuff that not a lot of people know. I think like I don't know really most of this stuff, or I
that's
wouldn't want to.
interesting.
I also wouldn't want to like take on the risk or the extra work of it. But it seems like you're gathering like you're definitely like learning stuff firsthand that like people do not encounter or are not aware of, I think.
Yeah, most people I talk to aren't aware of like anything. When I
Yeah,
talk to people, I fail to realize that most people haven't even left this geographical area.
right.
Like a lot of people I come across haven't even left the fucking area, Richard. It's crazy. Like I talked to like some of
Yeah.
the people behind the counter getting my milkshake or
Oh
my
yeah.
protein shake at the gym. Yeah, no life experience at all. Some of these people, I don't realize it sometimes. I just now I start talking about money or evolution. They're just like, "Whoa, what, dude? Like, gnarly, man. That's so cool." But yeah, this book here I'm reading almost tossed in the recycle bin. But there's a history lesson to be learned from it, and that is the government is fucking its people with its policy and taxes and stuff. And it's basically
Yeah.
not allowing the middle class to break out of their cages or to grow unless they, I don't know, still figuring it out. But yeah, the
Right.
tax benefits beforehand, I could see like, yeah, basically the best time to be alive was like, what, 20 years ago. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, if
I
you knew
do
about,
sense that. Yeah. It
yeah, if you,
it is weird. Like I wonder if that's going to be true for the rest of time. Like will the best time to have been alive past
yes,
at this point?
I, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
every
Stop.
generation thinks that, but it does seem like there does not seem to be like a bright future, and we can see all of past history, and it's hard to argue that it's going to get better.
I mean, unless your family took advantage of the opportunity and has money that's gonna be passed down to you. Best time was, yeah, 20 years ago. There's a picture I found from Too Long Didn't Read TLDR, and it was like the wisdom of X or Twitter X, and it's basically a picture of an ultrasound of like a baby in the womb, and like the caption is, "This was me in 1997 resting when I should have been buying property and buying Apple and Microsoft."
Yeah.
It's so funny 'cause it's like, yeah, like we weren't alive during these golden opportunities. Now you don't know the future, but all you had to do was be aware of your surroundings, and you can see like Apple computers coming out of nowhere or like the IBMs, and holy shit, this is the future. I mean, if you were alive during that time and your head wasn't up your ass and you saw what was being created, it's very quick to see, like, yeah, that's the future. It's
Yeah.
harder. I would argue it's harder to spot opportunities now. I mean, there's just so many bloody companies. I'm like, oh, an air drone delivery company? That sounds great. That sounds like it has a lot of potential. Oh, wait, yeah, the government can get in the way, and until the
Right.
rules change about drones, yeah, drones aren't going to be taken over anytime soon. So it's like, but the computers, when they emerged, yeah, I mean, and then the internet, oof,
Yeah.
it's kind of like right now with AI and like Nvidia, and it's so who are going to be the big AI players down the road? And I think that's where people are betting. And I don't know if it's too late. I don't know where the bubble is. No one knows where the bubble is. But I'm
Right.
pretty sure I should have got into that shit 6 months ago. I did have Nvidia stock, but when it was 800 USD,
Right.
it
Yeah.
was yeah. Too late though. I mean, once they're that big, once stocks cost that much, I think it's too much at that point in time.
Yeah.
You have to at that point just spread it with the S&P 500 stuff, and then look at promising emerging penny stocks like companies that have the potential to fucking blow up. Those are the ones you got to focus on. At least that's what I'm thinking. So in the future, that's what I'm gonna be looking at is some younger companies.
Yeah. Mm.
Like 2007, iPhone comes out. Holy shit. I didn't even realize that was new tech. There was a Samsung equivalent. I bought the Samsung. I didn't realize that was
Right.
like a new tech, right? Like I didn't realize. If I had any awareness of the stock market or any of that shit, how that worked, man, I would have bought Apple for sure. If I had the awareness that I have now of the potential that Apple had.
And just the tools, like there's some decent investing tools now, but even like 10 years ago, it was slow and hard to like open an account that would let you do investing. And people were not like, there wasn't just like, you couldn't just like look up on the internet and read like many personal stories about like investing and feel comfortable. It seems like it was like guarded, like that was like the guarded knowledge by the upper class during that era was like the ability to buy stock seemed like there was a lot of friction around getting that. Now it's pretty
Interesting, yeah.
easy. Yeah.
I got $10,000 from Children's Aid Society for some mental health issues. I forget how that even went about, but I put immediately 5,000 into I think a mutual fund that was told to
Okay.
invest in, and I did. No idea what I invested in. That
Oh,
grew like crazy, but I pulled it out. I mean, I was a young dumb kid, and
oh yeah.
I needed the money in university because I was spending like crazy, even though I was in RMC. But yeah, I went nuts for the 5K that I had, and looking back, I mean, if someone took me under their wing and like educated me, I probably would have just invested it all of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, shoulda, woulda, coulda. I mean, I had the opportunity to get into Bitcoin, man, back when you could mine with the CPU. I knew someone that was doing it. I wasn't curious enough. I walked away from the opportunity, just like I walked away from an $80,000 job in second year university. I could have worked part time. Walked away from it because I just, yep,
Yeah.
didn't have the curiosity or the gonads to take on something new. And so that's why I'm diving into the US real estate. And I had that meeting today with those individuals and why I'm going to be putting some money down tomorrow to buy a home in Texas. Because I'm not fucking
Yeah.
walking away from another opportunity like this. This could be the
Yeah, I'll
next
be
gold mine
interested to
for me.
hear how that goes. Yeah, it'll be cool. Like, we can check in on that, how that's going. Like each in our future conversations, it'll be interesting to hear that
Yeah,
how it ends
because
up
like
turning out.
I
Yeah.
just read the book Humankind, and there's so many great takeaways from it. Like one of them, I'll say, it basically sums up that human nature isn't evil. Veneer theory is widely accepted because of our negativity bias, and it sells like apocalypse movies and whatever else. Without the rule of law, we're all savages. It's not really true. And it does stabilize us, and we've hit a point where we can't go back to the way it used to be because our populations are too big. But in our nature, we're not all savages. Obviously, there's some bad apples. Other great thing is basically like be the change you want to see, and we model good behavior. Good behavior and giving actually makes us feel good. So the more you give, the better everyone feels around you, including yourself. And then that behavior is modeled. So this whole like minimizing and downplaying generosity should be stopped. It's not about being humble. We should be proud to give and be loud about it so that others can model after us. But another thing it said too is like, if you go around trusting nobody, you will have no results. Opportunity comes from trusting others. If you write everybody off and you don't trust them, you won't get anywhere. Yes, if you trust people, you will be burned from time to time, but at least you will have opportunities that arise from that.
Yeah.
Giving someone a chance by trusting them, they may let you down, but they also may surprise you and do well. And really, we all have this sort of, I don't know what's the word for it, inclination, or we all want to trust other people. We don't want to not trust them. I find myself wanting to trust people. We're we're the only species, we're the only species that blushes, which is a telltale sign that, like something's off, or like we're not supposed to be deceitful to each other because it goes against our programming of building connection and coming together. It's like we all inherently want to trust each other. But yeah, there are some bad apples out there that try to take our money and fuck us over. But
Yeah.
basically, the book is saying if you don't trust anybody ever, you won't reap any benefits. You'll just net
Right.
zero. I gotta figure out the exact terminology that was used. It was actually very convincing. I'm doing it no justice. The book, though, Humankind, is an excellent read. I recommend it to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point, I'll check it out at some point. I got at least one book, another fictional book that I'm reading now.
Well, this isn't fiction. Real life case
Yeah.
studies, man.
Yeah. Lately, I've just been into like fiction books, but yeah, I should read. I want to read some like true factual stuff at some point.
Yeah, only one fact book at a time, and then as many fiction as you want. Just
Yeah.
I've got into the bad habit of working like 3 or 4 fact books at the same time, and I
Oh,
mean, I get bored quick, and then I rotate between them. I take
yeah.
a lot of notes, but I guess we're good for time.
Yeah. We're good.
All right, I'll catch you
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah. I'll see you.
Bye, buddy.